I was having dinner not too long ago with a friend of mine. I see him as somewhat of a mentor as well. He's a bit older, has a couple decades on me as an entrepreneur, and we were talking about personal development, different ways to invest in yourself, what has the most ROI, kind of throwing ideas back and forth. And I started talking about different coaches I've linked up with, some of my observations on that. And he jumped right into this story. He says, Eddie, way back in the day, I paid a huge amount of money to spend the weekend with someone that I admired as an entrepreneur, as a business mind, with the intent to learn about him, his systems, his approach to his business and life, the whole thing. It was basically an investment into my journey. And he went on to say, I arrived for the weekend. Didn't take me long to feel completely underwhelmed, completely let down. Everything about the guy and his organization was sloppy. Nothing seemed to be methodical. Very little was extraordinary or groundbreaking. He said, I couldn't believe it, especially after tens of thousands of dollars spent, right? He spent a lot of money. Couldn't believe that someone he looked up to had so little to offer. And I'm sitting there just kind of like wide-eyed, like, oh man. And almost instinctively, I said, man, you must have been so angry. And he goes in this cheerful voice, no, I wasn't angry at all. This is a direct quote. He says, it was the best money I've ever spent in my life. I said, oh yeah, how? He says, it was that day I learned that, hey, if this clown can do it, if this guy can pull it off, what in the world is stopping me? What's my excuse? Basically said that day has been directly correlated to the success he's had since. Wow. Right, to which I responded, hey, thank you for the theme to what will become this Monday's YouTube video, right? Because the world needs to hear this message. So many of us need this. There's a tendency to put other people we don't know, people we know nothing about, right, on a pedestal and see ourselves as perpetual outsiders looking in. This notion that they have what I don't. When so often that thing they have is simply, even solely, self-belief. I know so many competent people that second-guess themselves out of starting or growth or progress. They see their inadequacies as substantially greater than their strengths. They don't go because they contemplate. They don't speak because they internalize. They don't create because they worry. And it's like, if you don't, someone else will. And that someone else could very easily be less suited for the job. But they did the thing that you wouldn't. The thing, as it turns out, that matters most. They trusted themselves to give it a shot. They understood that nothing starts until one looks in the mirror and believes in the pair of eyes staring back. And I look back and it just all makes perfect sense. I think of the frustration in my parents' faces when I was a kid and would say, I can't do that. Right? It was the frustration of people who care deeply about me watching me get in my own way. Right? Yes, you can, Eddie. You are the one stopping you. My grandfather saying everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time. No one is that special. And I think it's a critical reminder. It's not to say that success isn't warranted, that people who have done great things aren't qualified or talented or haven't earned it. No, not at all. The opposite, in fact. Time plus effort plus consistency tends to land people in pretty remarkable places. But it's like, no one takes that path or starts that journey unless they see themselves as worthy of it, until they give themselves permission. It makes you wonder how many people are simply too intimidated to lace up their shoes and walk out the front door. Don't even give it the thought. Hey, that's someone else's reality. I'm confined to this space right here. Think back to the early days of any incredible transformation. Right, I'm going to use a pretty cliche example, but I think it will do a great job of demonstrating my point. Think back to Michael Jordan playing JV basketball in high school his sophomore year because he didn't make the varsity team, okay? And at that point, if he was looking for evidence as to why he wasn't quite good enough, there it was. He could have easily found it. Not skilled enough, not quick enough, lacks vision. Certainly, as his coach pointed out, not tall enough, right? What in the world gave him the right, despite his circumstances, to think he was good enough to ultimately play at a high level? Who gave him permission to be that guy? He did. And it's just that. We don't see or think about any of that now. We see the NBA legend, the greatest ever, forgetting that at one point, he wasn't. And his life continuously consisted of crossroads where he had to bet on himself. Times where instead of accepting outcomes that weren't ideal, he sacrificed. He said, I do not accept that. He put in hours, which is a concept that we take for granted, right? People don't sacrifice unless they believe something will come from the blood, sweat, and tears. He believed that it would. You have to believe that it will as well. In fact, your life, if you started right now, made a little dot or mark on the present moment, and you could live two simultaneous existences at once. One track where you saw yourself as something extraordinary and sought to live that out, and the other track where the same you saw greatness as some intimidating, larger-than-life reality reserved for other people, the few. Right? You viewed yourself as an outsider, average, incapable, undeserving. The difference between where those tracks would end up would be worlds apart. Again, because humans follow through on who they believe themselves to be. We don't do things unless we believe they're possible. We don't sacrifice unless there's some sort of delayed gratification. We don't climb unless there exists a summit. What makes life both beautiful and mysterious is that we have to arrive at those outcomes before they exist. As Babe Ruth famously said in that article in the 1940s, it's hard to beat a person who never gives up. And it's hard to beat them because they believe themselves worthy of what they are chasing. So when will you? When will you find yourself worthy of that next level? When will you find yourself worthy of the financial success, the physique, the significant other, growth in your business? When will you let yourself be more or different or happy or whatever it is that seems just outside the scope of your reality? This world is built by people who understood what they wanted and granted themselves the freedom to pursue it. No superhuman strength required to place greater value on yourself. No record-breaking IQ necessary to live life on your terms, just a choice. Truly, a decision. And sure, it will be strange and awkward at first. You'll feel like an imposter in your own body at times. After all, getting what you've never had means doing what you've never done, but this is par for the course. This is life. And life cannot give you what you don't ask for. You can't arrive at a destination you're not traveling to. You can't be who you don't believe you're capable of becoming. So know that aforementioned reflection in the mirror has a depth to it. that must be explored. And that what separates immobility from infinity is the understanding that, hey, if it's possible, then it is most definitely possible for me. You're not the same person you were a year ago. It's an important thing to understand. Progress is incremental. We often fall into the habit of looking forward, looking ahead. That's wonderful. We want to push boundaries. We want to be looking down that road. But something that differentiated the chapters in my life from stress and inadequacy and just not feeling like enough versus being content but understanding this is a process, it's the realization that you have to pat yourself on the back, that you have to turn around, you have to look behind you, and you have to say, you know what? I've come further than I thought. I'm not the same person I was last month, last year, or 2 years ago. There are things I'm doing now that I couldn't do. I think in certain ways that I never thought before. And what this does is it helps you maintain perspective, that life is an evolution, and that you are exactly where you need to be for whatever journey you are on. Right? In today's world of keeping up with the Joneses or Instagram, I think social media culture can be incredibly dangerous. It has its value, but like everything, the truth is always right in the middle. It's a problem when you're looking around you and seeing and highlighting things that you're not. I'm not this, I'm not that, I wish I was, but I'm not, right? For a few reasons. One, because that stuff often is a highlight reel. It's not reflective of reality. And two, it's not your journey. It has nothing to do with where you're going. And it creates this false sense of panic. Like, I'm not where I should be. No, you're exactly where you need to be. And you've done things and you've overcome obstacles, some you haven't even realized, that have been monumental. Success is so incremental. It's counterproductive. It goes against everything we are. It goes against how we think, right? It's like you exert yourself, you exhaust energy. Well, where's the feedback? What do you mean there's no feedback? Well, it takes time, right? And the idea of showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up and getting very little back can be devastating. It can be exhausting. That's why it's so important to remember that you are evolving and that you have evolved. Right? You are the culmination of all these beautiful, incredible steps you've taken. And let me tell you something. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply not stop. It's not some magic solution. It's not to hit a home run every time you're at the plate. No, sometimes it's simply carrying on when most people wouldn't. And if you can look back and you see a sample size, you see a day one and a starting point, you've done the incredible. You're in the minority. You've continued on into an unknown that scares most people to death. Doesn't mean there's not more to do. Doesn't mean you shouldn't continue evolving. But it means you're the product of courage. That those little yeses mean something. And so I have people reach out all the time. You know, I'm down. I don't feel like myself. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I've lost my why. Hey, I get it. We all do. Literally every single human being has felt like that. It's not reflective of you or reality. The reality is, when you've forgotten your why, you've forgotten how far you've come. You've lost your momentum in relation to your North Star. And it's a feeling that you can pick right back up with a small win. It's amazing how many things in life, they feel so big when we're looking at that mountaintop, when we're looking at the solution. They feel larger than life. And that's what puts us in these slumps. That's what intimidates. It's like, look where I need to be. I'm not a fraction of that. But you don't need to be that. You need to take one little step forward. And as I say all the time, anyone can take one little step forward. Anyone can do that. Anyone can create a spark of momentum. Spark of momentum over time accumulates to the good stuff, the important stuff, the meaningful stuff. So when you feel like that, remember, you're asking too much of yourself. Not in the big picture, but today, right now. Because what you need to do right now is show up. That's it. You need to make one little decision and start a pattern that can accumulate. Create a snowball that will become an avalanche. That's your job. When you keep your mind in the moment, you open all these doors that would otherwise have been shut. No one can leap a mountain, anyone can climb a rock. What's your rock today? What's your one thing today? Some things are made from little nothings, right? What's your little nothing? What are you going to transform? You don't have to be Bezos tomorrow. Maybe you make a business plan today. Maybe you make a call today, this afternoon, this morning, whenever. But it's compartmentalizing that. You have so much control over your life when you realize what's actually required. And that's why, again, going back to that point, you're not the same person you were yesterday. All those little decisions, all those little emails, all those times you stepped outside, all those times you made the call, created the website, networked, all those things you did brought you to this moment. Every time you ran, every time you worked out, every time you studied, took a course, took a class, took a test, they all comprise you in this current moment. They mean something, but we don't look around and say, wow, look at all the things I've done. No, we look out and say, look what I'm missing, look what I'm lacking. You're not lacking anything except a single step forward. The realization that all you have to do is move one step. And that simple understanding completely transformed my life. I spent the first 3-4 years as a creator, as a business owner, just in this feeling of scarcity. Like, look at all the things I don't have. To the point where as I'm building, I don't even realize I'm building. I never look back. I never look around. I never appreciate life as it is. That's the recipe for disaster, because there will always be more to build. Always. It doesn't matter how far you've come or what you're doing. But when I learn to acknowledge, hey, everything that you've done has brought you here, appreciate it. Relish in the moment. And then decide where you want to go next. It's a journey. It's not that serious. Life is not that serious. I tell my friend Zach all the time, life should emulate his son, walking around the living room, poking things, prodding things, pulling blankets off the couch and making tents. Like, it's an experiment. It's not a test. And you're well equipped to move any direction you want to move. You've come this far, and you can continue down that road. So that's my message to you. It's a simple one. Simple but crucial. Appreciate how far you've come and understand that where you're going requires not some magic formula, but a single step forward and a commitment down the road that you choose to go down. That will create transformation. That will bring about a life that you've never had before. Subtly, right? Without even realizing it. Little by little, compounding into the beauty that we are equipped to capture, to bring in.